But I will say that the way that they were playing music throughout the whole event was super fucking annoying. Just playing bass, hip hop for, 8, 9 hours constantly, because 8 hours of bass pounding in your ears is just, it gets painful to some degree.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight Adele.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu-Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Today, we are going to recap and review the biggest stories of ADCC and CJI. But before we do that, please like, share, subscribe to the show. Leave a comment wherever you can. Leave a review. It really helps me grow the show. Share the show if you can. If you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom as per usual. All right, so last weekend I went to ADCC. I was in Vegas to take everything in. It was the biggest weekend really in jiu-jitsu history, I would argue. And it was a fantastic time. Now, fantastic in that the level of jiu-jitsu is incredible. Anyone who's a fan like me, I'm sure all of you were watching it as well. If you're listening to the show, you probably just as amazed as I was of just the magnitude of the two events coming together and all the names that were involved, all the things that happened, all the upsets. We're going to discuss it all today. Tons of things happen. A lot of unpredictable things happen. Very, very cool weekend. Personally, for me, I hate Vegas. It's not really a fun place for me to go to, just to go. And all I hear about is everybody telling me how awesome Vegas is and they love Vegas. I would probably never go to Las Vegas if there never was a jiu-jitsu event there ever again. But I will say it is funny to go down there and to see all the people from home that you know who are also traveling down to take in the jiu-jitsu. Also, just being surrounded by legends. I stayed at the MGM Grand, which is where all the fighters are staying. And so you're walking down the hallway, you're running into guys like Gordon, Danaher. I saw Babalu Sabral, Barrett Yoshida, like just random legends all over the place. Janji, just people walking around, and you're just like, man, this is super cool. I didn't fanboy out or anything because I've been to Master Worlds before, and at Master Worlds you basically meet all the legends. So I wasn't as starstruck as I would probably be if I'd never seen all these guys. So it was kind of a cool experience for me to see everyone in one room. But again, like just the eventfulness of the weekend with the two events coming together, it really was a monumental weekend. And it's funny, it's kind of overshadowing next weekend, which is Master Worlds again in Vegas. I actually know people who are going to both of those events. But I think compared to Masters Worlds, obviously ADCC and CJI, it just really doesn't get bigger than that. I would argue it's the biggest weekend that we ever had for the sport. And I would like to just go over a couple of my main takeaways and, of course, discuss a lot of the main fights and outcomes that happened that weekend. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, I got some gripes about ADCC. The way that they run this tournament, like, you're in this giant arena and you're in your seats. And of course, it's hard to watch things sometimes when you're in an arena like a combat sport like UFC or grappling, because these guys look like two little ants fighting in front of you. And often you do watch the screen. And that's kind of to be expected when you go to this type of an event. But I will say that the way that they were playing music throughout the whole event was super fucking annoying. Just playing bass, hip hop for 8, 9 hours constantly, and the bass is just pumping in your ears. And I'm not the only one. I spoke to many people who were down there, and they were like, "Man, what's with this music?" Like, it was just super annoying to have music pounding in your ears the whole time. I actually like it better when it's I don't mind music during matches, but at a lower volume, because 8 hours of bass pounding in your ears is just it gets painful to some degree. And then when the song stops periodically, you're like, oh my God, some relief. I actually really do prefer drummers. The drummers, as much as we want to talk about that they're getting paid more than the athletes at ADCC, which is probably true, the drummers really do add to the atmosphere, and I actually thought that added to the show. All the stuff with the lasers and the pyro and the smoke, and the graphics that were shown on the screen, like this production value that it must have cost the organization like, I don't know, $1,000 or not thousand, sorry, $1 million or something. I don't know what it cost, but I'm sure it was anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million to get this event going for 2 days with all the show with the lasers and the pyrotechnics. And to be honest, to me, it didn't really add to the show at all. It's the production value to me didn't really increase the value of this show or even make it more enjoyable. For me, I enjoy the show because all the awesome jiu-jitsu, all the stars coming in one place to compete for the most prestigious title or whatever. But having like these robotic figures on these robotic graphics when they walk out on the big stage and just like the smoke coming out on the lasers, it's just, I don't know. For me, it was just kind of lackluster, and it didn't make the event. It didn't add to the event, right? I actually like the drums because it's such a genuine, like, it makes it such a genuine atmosphere that is, I think, more truthful to the martial arts as opposed to like, the pyrotechnics and whatever. And the pyrotechnics weren't even really that impressive. So for me, that I do really agree with Craig in that, that's not really a part of the show that the money should be dedicated towards. It should be more dedicated towards the athletes. So as far as the production value of the show, I guess visually, was it impressive? Yes. But did it add to my jiu-jitsu event experience? I didn't think so. Also, I should mention that I don't think the T-Mobile Arena is really a great venue for ADCC because it was like literally half full. I was told before I went in that the event had sold out, and I get there and the upper bowl is like completely empty. It's not completely empty, but you could easily move everyone down to the lower bowl and fill it up. And honestly, they probably should have done that. So I don't know if that's because CJI was the same weekend, and I know people were, going from one event to the other to catch CJI or whatever. And I just don't think that ADCC is at the point yet where T-Mobile Arena is the place to go. As an overall tournament experience comparison, I didn't go to CJI. I was planning on doing it, but I ended up not going. I think that would have been honestly way too much jiu-jitsu for one, or I should say 2 days. The people that I did speak with, though, who went to both events, everyone said the same thing. CJI was a much more fun show. It was a more intimate atmosphere. It was more, I don't know if relaxed is the term, but just more fun and enjoyable. And people were laughing and joking. And it really has shown that CJI reigns supreme in terms of, I think, the spectator enjoyment aspect of it. It really is true that CJI has outdone itself in terms of exceeding expectations. Obviously, it's set out to make the goal of getting these athletes more money, getting the ladies paid more money, and it did that. It really achieved that. And it truly did, I think, trump the ADCC this year. I remember the previous two ADCCs, everyone was talking about how, the sport has picked up so much momentum because of these ADCC events, and what's going to happen next ADCC. It's going to even be more big. And I think this was the opposite. Like this event, people have come away from ADCC and it's in the shadow of CJI. And I don't think the sport or the attendance has really increased since last time. Again, I'm just speaking from my own observation. I don't know the actual statistics of sales and everything like that, but man, to me, it seems like CJI really stole the show this weekend. And I guess money really does talk. I guess $1 million on the line. And, all the reasons for Craig doing this event have really come true and really, reign supreme. I would also like to mention, ADCC, just as a side note, yes, they are the Olympics of our sport, as it's said, but man, I'm just like not really that impressed with the ADCC lately. Like, if you guys follow my social, you know that they blocked my On Guard account, they blocked the podcast account, and it was all because I made like a snide little remark. It wasn't even that bad. It was just, oh wow, this show is really struggling, when they invited a certain athlete to ADCC that I didn't recognize. They invited someone. I commented, this show is starting to really struggle, and then they blocked me instantly. And a couple of people have told me that they've been blocked by ADCC. So like whoever's running that account, I assume it's Mo, but it might be someone else. They're really, really sensitive. They don't want people in their comment section talking anything badly about ADCC or even criticizing it. Obviously, CJI is a very, very sore topic with this organization. And to add to what I just said, Gabi Garcia was invited to the ADCC Hall of Fame, but then she chooses not to go there. She chooses to go to CJI. And what does ADCC do? They revoke her induction into the Hall of Fame, which makes no fucking sense. It doesn't take away from her world titles in multiple organizations, ADCC included. It doesn't take away from the legitimacy of her titles. But now, because she has chosen to support your rival event, you revoke her Hall of Fame induction, which I thought was super low class, very, very petty. It's kind of par for the course the way that things have gone on with ADCC lately. If you heard the interview with Craig Jones and Stuart Cooper, which I recommend everyone check out on, I guess it was the El Segundo podcast. Craig talks to Stuart. Stuart's going on about basically how he was kicked out of ADCC and how he had issues with his footage, and ADCC and Flow Grappling kind of screwed him over, tried to take rights of his footage and all this stuff, and basically banned him from every event. He was saying, well, I've done a lot of work for you guys. Like, I've given you guys a lot of exposure through my videos. And then they countered by saying, no, we've actually done a lot for you by giving you, access to the ADCC or whatever. And you've kind of gotten big off of our name. So, come away thinking about that situation, whatever you want, but the whole Gabi Garcia losing her ADCC Hall of Fame thing is really ridiculous. Does that mean that she's no longer entitled to her place in the Hall of Fame? Is she going to get a Hall of Fame induction at some point in the future? Or is ADCC just going to be little crybabies and not let her have that moment? And that would be really, really sad and unfortunate. But I think at this point, par for the course, just from the things that I've seen and the things that I've heard from ADCC top brass. They should have just inducted her anyways, in my opinion. Just induct her, even though she's not there. It would have been the classy thing to do. Recognize her accomplishments, and she's not there to receive the award, but it's still legit, and then that way everything's fair. But they're playing this very political bias game. Anybody who goes against ADCC or who went to CJI or whatever is now, I guess, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, every 2 years, I think in 2 years, they might forget about these guys jumping over. But I would just like to see that ADCC doesn't hold any grudges and they keep the politics out of these types of decisions. And you got guys like Mo Jassim and Seth Daniels running your organization. It's like, I'm not surprised that shady things are going on, honestly. I was one of the guys that didn't really criticize them that much. I was on the train of like, well, they're doing so much for the sport and all this stuff. But man, just ever since the last couple months and all the things that I've seen, I've kind of changed my mind on this a little bit. I think a lot of people have come around too. So it'll be interesting to see in the next 2 years what ADCC does in terms of like athlete pay and inviting people back to the show. And then again, of course, political things like, is Gabi Garcia worthy of a Hall of Fame, induction? Anyways, that's just my little spiel on ADCC. Plus, did you notice that a bunch of these Brazilian fighters are wearing belts with their no-gi attire? I mean, this is an organization where previously you're allowed to wear things like wrestling shoes, gi jackets. I think they actually got rid of that rule. Like, I don't think you're allowed to wear a gi anymore. I don't think you're allowed to wear shoes anymore. They want it more no-gi streamlined. Even though I thought those things were always super cool, just to have that ability to do that is kind of neat. It's kind of like, let's find the most dominant grappling style, but I think they've now changed that. But wearing the belts, I was wondering, like, are they allowed to grab the belts? Because the belt is actually such a robust grip, especially when it comes to standing position, things like throws and sumigaeshis and things like that. Like, the belt is a huge disadvantage if you can grab someone's belt. So it's like a fashion statement. I notice athletes like Diogo Reis, Mica Galvao, and Bianca Basilio were all wearing belts. And I was like, I think I was just as confused as anyone else. I'd actually never heard of that happening in competition, even though I've seen pictures of these guys training with belts on in their no-gi gear. I never thought that they would compete with that on. And it's a trend that honestly I'm not really too hot on, unless as the opponent I'm allowed to grab it. I think it's unfair to be able to wear a belt and nobody can grab it. Like, I don't know. It should be a usable part of the attire, in my opinion. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the upsets, some of the things that happened. So the first thing I want to talk about is Lucas Kanard, who I'm not actually sure where he's from. I think he's from Australia, perhaps. I could be wrong. he was set in the over 80 kilogram division against one of the top seeds, Victor Hugo. And Victor Hugo, if you listen to my prediction episode, and I think most people would predict this, he was like, him and Nicky Rod were kind of slated to be in the finals. Anyways, Victor Hugo gets heel hooked by Lucas Kanard in a couple of minutes. Lucas is on top and he back steps into the saddle and just immediately catches a dig and finishes Victor Hugo very quickly, ending his shot at the $1 million. And that was a huge upset. I remember seeing that and just being like, whoa, what the fuck? It kind of set the tone for the weekend because there were a lot of upsets. And I remember I was at the MGM Grand lifting weights when that happened. It was the first day. So I guess it would have been Friday? It was the first day I was lifting weights and I was coming out of the gym. And then right as I was walking out of the gym, that match had concluded. And I'm there walking through the hallway on my phone. I'm like, what the fuck? And then I look up and there's Gordon Ryan and Sonny. And I'm like, I walk up to him and some people are getting picture taken. He sees me. He's like, okay, this asshole's probably going to want my picture. And I walk up, I'm like, hey man, like, I don't need your picture or whatever. I've actually met him before. He's actually a really nice guy. And I was like, hey man, I don't need your picture, but did you just see what happened in the Victor Hugo match? He's like, no, what happened? And I just pull up my phone and he's just like, oh my God, like this guy leaves his chance to win ADCC to go win $1 million. He gets heel hooked in a couple of minutes. It's just, he was laughing about it. And then we went about our day. So it's just, that was such a huge shock. I'd never heard of this Lucas Kanard guy, but man, he did end up losing his next match. I can't remember the guy's name is. I can't pronounce his first name. I don't know it, but his last name was Santos from Atos, I believe. And so this Kanard guy did lose his next match, but man, taking out the top seed like Victor Hugo, that really, I think, set the stage for Nicky Rod to win the $1 million. Then we had Lucas Barbosa fighting Jozef Chen in the under 80 kilogram division. And Lucas Barbosa submits him with a Sean Roberts style calf crush, knee crush type submission where he takes a deep scoop underneath Jozef's leg and he throws his legs over the top and just cranks on it. And it's a submission that is kind of fugazi, but man, when you got a big, strong dude like Lucas Barbosa locked around you and he's pulling on your knee, I mean, I would probably tap. That's the type of move right there that would hurt my knee because of my meniscus issues, where the knee is being compressed, but yet pulling outward. So I don't blame Lucas for tapping it, or pardon me, Jozef for tapping it all. And I think it was one of those situations where Jozef was kind of like, if you watch the footage, he kind of freezes up because he doesn't know what to do. He's like trying to uncross the legs, which is generally what you do when you're caught in a leg entanglement. But because Barbosa had this like mean grip underneath his knee and he's just ripping on it, I think Jozef kind of was like, oh shit, like I'm not used to people going for such an unorthodox move. This is kind of a move that is considered ineffective. We used to see a guy, I mentioned Sean Roberts. This is a guy who was a really good competitor like 10 years ago, just ripping these knee crush submissions just in that exact fashion, submitting a lot of people with this move. And then people just were like, okay, that's not actually a move that will work on good leg lockers. But Lucas Barbosa with the submission over Jozef Chen, very, very impressive with an unorthodox knee crush, calf crush, whatever you want to call it. And I should mention that I think it was revealed after Lucas lost his match. He lost his next match to Levi Jones-Leary, pardon me. It was noted that he had dislocated his shoulder something like 5 weeks prior to the competition. So very, very impressive by Lucas Barbosa. I actually thought he would go far in that tournament for sure, especially being in the lower weight class. And he had a very good showing, obviously taking out a very skilled competitor in Jozef Chen. Giancarlo Bodoni gets gold again at 88 kilograms. I think he's the only athlete in ADCC history to get gold 2 years in a row in the 88 kilogram division. Definitely had a barn burner of a match against J-Rod in the finals. And man, it was very, very impressive to watch Giancarlo in that tournament. He always just found a way to win. It was super impressive. And then he actually loses to Dante Leon, I believe, in the absolute semifinal. And he loses he loses in the bronze medal match, if I'm not mistaken, to Dante Leon in a really, really close match. And Giancarlo Bodoni is a beast. Had a really great competition, but couldn't make it onto the absolute podium. All right, we're going to talk about one of the biggest stories that happened this weekend, and that was Nicholas Meregali versus Pixley. Michael Pixley, I believe his name is. And Pixley is a guy who's really known for being a high-level wrestler. He's a pretty big dude. and he represents the Pedigo fighting system, and he's going against Meregali. Meregali, now, I don't need to explain who Meregali is. You know, he's a legend in jiu-jitsu, multiple-time world champion. This was supposed to be his year. Like, everybody thought he was going to double gold this year, and his Instagram posts are always like, oh, this is what greatness is. And he made a post leading up to ADCC. Guys, said something along the lines of like, I'm kind of getting bored with this. I need you guys to let me know what submissions you want to see. I'm going to armbar Kaynan in the finals, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get double gold. And just like, man, he got into a stand-up situation with Pixley. He wanted to stand with this guy, and he could have pulled guard. He could have played guard, but I think he kind of was like, he wanted to prove a point that he was going to be able to hit his takedowns because he's had so much recent success with his takedowns. Anyways, ends up getting tossed by Pixley early in the match where his feet completely come off the ground. And they get into a second standing exchange. Again, I believe both were like overhook Uchimata or Harai Goshi type techniques. And Meregali gets tossed, I believe, with Uchimata, and he posts his arm out really wide and completely separates his shoulder. And right as it happened, I actually stepped away. So I was down the hall when that happened, and I didn't see it live with my own eyes, but I just hear the arena exploding, and I know that Nicholas Meregali is fighting, right? And it was one of those explosions from the crowd where I was like, I don't think they would explode like that if Nicholas had won, because he's supposed to win. But something must have happened. Anyways, I run to a screen because I wasn't really near my seat at the time. I run into the scene, and Meregali's lying on the ground with his arm clutched. I'm like, no, what the fuck just happened? I just missed that. And then I watched the replay, and Pixley threw Meregali so hard he landed. He posted wide, and then apparently he was asking Pixley to please stop due to the injury, which to me is a submission, right? You can't just stop during the match. And then Pixley just ignores those pleads from his injured opponent and just throws a darce on, right? An instant tap from Meregali. So shoulder injuries are no joke. They're one of the worst injuries you can have in jiu-jitsu. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery, because I feel like Meregali has not like reached his full potential in the no-gi realm. Obviously, I think he will win the world championship, assuming his surgery and all that goes well. He should win. He's good enough to win, but I think he played the wrong game plan against Pixley. He wanted to prove something, and he ended up playing right into his strengths. And man, Pixley's got some crazy throws, like just chucking Nicholas Meregali, when previously we've seen Meregali dominate people from the feet. All right, let's talk about the match of the year, the Andrew Tackett versus Kade Ruotolo. This was such a back and forth match. I mean, Andrew Tackett had such a crazy showing at CJI. The way that he dominated Nicky Rod in the first match, like I thought he would beat Nicky Rod. I didn't think it was going to be that dominant. I did expect the match to go in that fashion. Like eventually Tackett's pace would be too much for Nicky, and Nicky wouldn't be able to recover his guard, but I didn't expect it to happen so fast and so frequent. Like Andrew really looked like he was doing what he wanted to do. And I suspect that Nicky, I heard rumors that he was injured leading up into this competition. Of course, Nicky's cardio has always been an issue for him. He tends to have issues later stages in the, as talented as he is, as incredible of a jiu-jitsu fighter as he is, later on in the matches, he does burn out, when Andrew Tackett is like, he just basically doesn't slow down at all. And we really just saw an incredible display of guard passing, loose passing around the outside, backflips, just crazy shit. So Tackett looked amazing. And then he goes against one of the other top seeds in the under 80 kilogram division, which is Kade Ruotolo. And Kade just looked unbelievable. Now, honestly, this match for me, it could have gone either way. I don't even know who I had winning when I was watching it. I just remember it was such a barn burner. People are comparing it to like it's the grappling equivalent to Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner for the Ultimate Fighter Champion season 1 finale, right? Like it's that big for the sport. Like any person could watch that fight. Any layman, non-jiu-jitsu fan could watch that fight and be amazed by it and want to see it. So I really thought that was such a fun, scrappy match. If you haven't seen that, definitely just go check that out on YouTube. I'm pretty sure you can rewatch it on YouTube for free. All right. Luke Griffith, he looked impressive, but he just fell short. He submits his teammate Big Dan Monasoyu in the semifinals to move on into the finals against Felipe Pena, who's a multiple-time ADCC champion, and absolute champion. And Luke Griffith, man, he almost won. Like, he took Pena down, he took his back, he almost had a submission. Then Pena escapes and gets out and takes his back and submits Luke Griffith. So it was like, man, Luke Griffith, he's either on or he's off. Like, I've seen matches where he absolutely destroys everyone, and then I've seen matches like I think it was Aiga when he fought some Russian dude and just got absolutely demolished, right? So he has the ability to show up and be super, super effective, and then he also sometimes shows up and he just gets tuned up. So he's kind of hard to tell which version of Luke we're going to get. I really wanted to see him win against Pena, and he almost did it, but he just fell short, and that was a pretty impressive performance from Luke Griffith. All right, so let's talk about Gordon the King Ryan. So, I mean, Gordon, it has now been revealed that Gordon went in with like a really shitty camp. Like, he had the worst camp ever, couldn't complete a 10-minute round. This is the narrative from everyone from his team. And he was just starting to get his timing and his cardio back. He had said that he was operating at about 30% of his potential in terms of cardio, and he's got to go against Pena and Yuri. He almost pulled out of this match, and I think guys like Danaher and Danaher specifically was saying, maybe you shouldn't do this match, and then Gordon, he did the matches anyways because he really didn't want the show to suffer. Like, I think it was almost like a personal favor to Mo because of all the CJI shit that's happening. And Gordon realized how much Mo really needs Gordon to be there this year because a lot of the star power was gone from this event. And Gordon really did look human. I remember when I was watching the match, when he got on top of Pena, he really wasn't moving very much, right? And I was wondering, I was like, man, why aren't we seeing a version of Gordon where he's like taking it to Pena, like he's camping on him as if this is a no time limit match. He's leaning on him and really not moving too much. And then it later revealed that he had hurt his knee, like perhaps a fully torn LCL. I heard that might even need surgery. And so it's like, okay, I can understand why he didn't really play the movement-based game that much and why he just really tried to maximize his weight efficiency. And sometimes what that means is you're just holding your partner for a long period of time. Then Pena comes up and he didn't wrestle up. It was actually from the standing position. Hits an arm drag, goes to the back for a body lock. Gordon Grambies. There's a scramble exchange, and then Gordon comes up on top and gets a controversial 2 points. Now, for those who are complaining about these 2 points, about how favoritism or whatever, I do think that in terms of the ADCC rules, that is definitely 2 points because it started from the feet. There was an exchange. The fact that Pena dove on the back doesn't really negate the points if Gordon's the one who ends up on top. Now, the other side of this is you could say, well, Pena's allowed to go for 3 seconds of hard work and then pull guard after those 3 seconds. But if you look at the tape, it clearly wasn't a guard pull. It was a scramble, a scrimmage, and Gordon won the exchange. And so I think it's a fair 2 points. And I think there's a lot of people who are haters of Gordon who are online just so blind with their hatred for him that they want to make their narrative fit. Make the 2 points fit their narrative, which is that Pena got robbed and it shouldn't have been 2, but I think it absolutely should have been 2. It was incredible because Pena almost beat Gordon. Like, he almost had the back there. And that, I think if he did take the back, it would have been over. But Gordon was somehow able to reverse the position. I don't know if he hit a scoop on the leg, something during the Granby when he was coming back up and managed to maintain top position and get his 2. So that was like, it even just gives me more respect for Gordon knowing that he was injured going into that. And he really did prove why he's the best this weekend. Then after the Pena fight, the next day he fights Yuri Samois and absolutely just destroys him. Racks up. I think the score was 21-0. It's possible Yuri got 2 out of that. I can't really remember exactly what happened. I watched so much jiu-jitsu that weekend. But Yuri at one point was chest to chest on Gordon, and off of a reversal, he got chest to chest on Gordon, which is something we don't really see very often. Of course, Gordon just like recovers instantly. Like, he just knows how to get it, knows how to dominate the inside position and get his frames back. But Gordon really did look human in that match. And clearly because his health and his condition, his injury, He wasn't at his full self. He couldn't express the jiu-jitsu that he fully does. He even had like dominant positions like mount that Gordon doesn't usually lose, but and I think he had like a rear triangle at times. He had a bunch of submissions locked in, and Yuri was able to get out every time. And that's just something we don't see Gordon do. So he looked completely human and very beatable this last weekend. But he proves he's the best because he's able to just overcome the injury and defeat, two of the best grapplers of all time back to back. So it really is impressive. And, he's a very polarizing figure. People either love him or they hate him. But even if you hate the guy, you have to respect, the effort that he put in. Even if it wasn't the prettiest matches, it wasn't the most technical of his performances, he still beat these two guys, and he was far from 100%. So definitely respect goes out to Gordon Ryan. All right, Diego Pato wins the 66 kilogram division again, 2 years in a row, and he defeats, Diogo Reis beats Diego Pato and wins the 66 kilogram division. Now, I actually thought Dorian was going to win this division, and he actually lost his first round to that Russian fellow. I don't know what the guy's name is. Complete dark horse, but that guy did have a really good showing at AGA about a year ago. And Dorian, that's my boy. Like, I really wanted him to win, but he had a bad exchange, and he got his back taken in the first opening match. And so he was out of the division. He was my prediction to win. And then my next prediction to win was Pato, because I thought Pato is just on another level right now. But he actually did end up pulling guard, I believe, twice in the finals against Diogo Reis. And Diogo was able to actually submit him with arm triangle. Another note, guys like Pato was wearing this this Oakley no-gi kit. And I didn't know that Oakley was into jiu-jitsu apparel. But man, those Oakley kits were ugly. Holy shit. They look like some kind of Dragon Ball Z or like some kind of like cyclist kit. It was like a lime green. I know there were some other fighters wearing them. Margot Cicerelli was wearing one. A couple of people were wearing these Oakley kits. I don't know. I thought they looked kind of gross, kind of like highlighter yellow. But aside from that, what's really important is, man, Diogo Reis comes back from a really bad injury after his last fight with Diego Pato at Who's Number One, a knee injury, and he comes back and submits him and wins the 66 kilogram gold medal 2 years in a row. Very, very impressive showing from Baby Shark. Okay, here is a huge milestone for women's jiu-jitsu, and this is this dark horse coming in, Adele Fornarino. I had never heard of this woman from Australia, and she's been doing a lot of training at Atos under Andre Galvao. I don't know if she's originally from under Andre Galvao, but I had never heard of this girl, and she wins the under 55 kilogram division gold medal, and she wins the absolute gold medal. Fucking absolutely crazy. And she is one of the smallest athletes in the entire tournament and wins double gold. She submitted Bianca Basilio with this mirror lock style overhook armbar from a closed guard, a standing closed guard as well, which looked absolutely nasty. Subbed her in like 1 or 2 minutes. And Bianca Basilio is a fucking legend. Like, she's won ADCC before. She's a world champion. That was super shocking. I guess that's what happens when you decide to wear a belt with your no-gi gear. I'm just kidding. But yeah, Adele Fornarino, and then after she calls out Fionn Davies, which I think is like, I'll be honest, guys, I don't really get too excited about female jiu-jitsu, and say whatever you want about that. It's hard for me to get like super excited. Obviously, I watched Fionn Davies versus Mackenzie Dern because they're both stars, but Fionn is like, arguably the best female jiu-jitsu fighter in the world right now. And Adele Fornarino calls her out after, and that's actually a fight that I would love to see. I think that would be absolutely amazing. And now, just winning double gold overnight, Adele Fornarino has become, a household name in women's jiu-jitsu. So that was like a huge accomplishment for Adele Fornarino. Then we have an amazing showing from Mica Galvao in the 77 kilogram division. He wins gold. He defeats Wagner Hosha for the gold medal. And man, you could argue that in the semis, Mica lost against PJ. I actually thought PJ Barch was going to win that, and then they gave the decision to Mica Galvao. I thought PJ did enough. At the end of regulation, he had Mica Galvao passed and mounted as time runs out. And then overtime kicks in, and as overtime ends, Mica has PJ's back, and it's just such a great back and forth battle. PJ takes him down, I think multiple times, as I recall, but it just wasn't enough. And then Mica takes the back of Wagner after a nice, strong, hard fight. He wins the gold by, I think he got a rear naked choke on Wagner. And then he goes against Dante Leon in the absolute division, and Dante Leon submits him with an ankle lock. I think Flow Grappling said it's a heel hook, but when I watch the tape, it looks like an ankle lock. And Dante Leon is a fucking specimen. Like, he has won double gold at, I think, Nogi Worlds, I believe. And this is not a big guy. This guy is my size. He's, this guy can fight as light as like 150. He is not big, but he's incredibly talented. He's actually a fellow Canadian. And he would go on, I believe he beat Giancarlo Bodoni in the absolute bronze medal match to win the bronze. So having such a small athlete win the absolute bronze medal is crazy. And to be able to say that you submitted a guy like Mica Galvao, I mean, we really don't see Mica Galvao lose ever, let alone get submitted. The last time I saw him get submitted was against Kade when he got leg locked. And it's just ironic that he gets submitted again by a leg lock in this competition against Dante Leon. So that was, wow, my hat goes off to Dante Leon. I'm a huge fan of him, and definitely keep your eyes on Dante Leon for whatever he's doing next. All right, and then we had Nicky Rod looking absolutely unstoppable at CJI, winning the over 80 kilogram division. After his first match against Max Jimenez, I thought that would be honestly one of the hardest matches for him because Max is a beast. I think he walks at like 350. He's huge, but Nicky was able to really utilize the slope of the alley and take Max down. And man, he just, there was a couple times I think Max was giving him some trouble, and Nicky was able to wrestle out of those positions. And then he was able to submit, I think, all of his opponents. I believe he hit Max Jimenez with a rear naked choke. He hit Adam Bradley with a rear naked choke. And in the finals, I think he got a rear naked choke as well. So Nicky Rod just looking incredible. And then he calls out Gordon Ryan in a challenge match for $1 million, my $1 million against your $1 million. And man, if you've been watching Gordon Ryan's social media lately, you could see that he's not responding to this at all. And I'm not saying he's scared or whatever. I'm just saying, well, first of all, he's injured and his health is not good. But Gordon has made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to give anybody from the B team any notoriety by competing against them. And so I don't know if we're ever going to see Nicky Rod versus Gordon. Honestly, it doesn't seem like Gordon wants any of that smoke. And it's funny how, Gordon has made a lot of his reputation since he was like a purple belt through challenge matches where he would say, okay, my 10,000 versus your 10,000, my 50,000 versus your 50,000. Then he's giving Pena 10-1 odds. I'll put up 100,000 of my money. You put up 10,000 of your money. And now Nicky Rod says million for $1 million, and Gordon is absolutely quiet. So wow, what a call out. And that just explains to you the type of confidence that Nicky Rod has now after that performance. But keep in mind, those guys are not Gordon Ryan. So if we see Gordon Ryan at 100%, fully healthy with a good camp, I think he's just too tactical and too technical for Nicky Rod to beat him. But again, it's one of the matches that's most exciting right now, and it kind of needs to happen. Another match that we need to see is Kaynan versus Gordon Ryan. After Kainan's performance, he of course wins double gold this weekend, wins the absolute title. And Kaynan is not even, he won the under 99 kilogram division title against Lovato. Kainan's not even like that big compared to the elite big guys in jiu-jitsu. Like compared to Lovato, he's actually like quite a bit smaller, it looked like, and he's smaller than Meregali as well, smaller than Victor Hugo. But somehow Kaynan Duarte manages to just win. He's so fucking good at jiu-jitsu. And if Gordon's still healthy 2 years from now, we're going to see them in the super fight. And that's the fight that it kind of needs to happen, right? I want to see what happens with Kaynan and Gordon. I don't think Kaynan can beat Gordon. I know they had a very, very close match, and Gordon, he had almost like a buzzer beater back take, I believe, when they fought years ago. I think it was Nogi Worlds they fought at. can't remember, 2018, 2019, something like that. Gordon was down and almost losing, and then he came back to win. So that was very, very close. And we need to see that rematch because those two guys obviously are so good. They're the best in the world. And I think we all want to see that. But Nicky Rod, throw him in the mix. Like, man, I would love to see Nicky Rod fight Gordon Ryan. And if you put $1 million, my million versus your million, it's going to be the biggest jiu-jitsu match in history. 100%. All right. And let's talk about the Kade Ruotolo and Levi Jones-Leary controversy. So this would be in the semifinals of the under 80 kilogram division in CJI. I had so many people messaging me about this. Like, well, what do you think about the decision, the Kade and Levi decision? Or sorry, not the semifinals. That was in the finals. Did I say semifinals? I think I did. In the finals, Kade defeats Levi Jones-Leary by decision. And there's a lot of speculation as to what the CJI rule set, what is the scoring criteria. ADCC rewards initiations. I don't think CJI rewards initiations. I believe when I read their rules, it said something like they reward effective jiu-jitsu technique. Now that's, again, a very, very, it's a very subjective criteria for scoring. What is effective? If Kade is walking backwards into a guard, which is what he did against Levi, walking backwards, hoping that Levi's going to go for crab rides and then like looking to backstep into legs and do weird shit like that, like who is initiating and who is effective? I actually kind of thought Levi won this match. And then of course, a bunch of people who hate guard pullers, they're going to let you know their opinions. If you're pulling guard, the guard player needs to be effective or whatever to get that victory. And the guard player wasn't being effective. He shouldn't even pull guard and all this stuff. And to me, effective jiu-jitsu is kind of decided by who is in the offensive cycle. And Levi was not getting his guard passed really at all. Like, I don't think Kade could have passed his guard. I will say earlier in the match, Kade did throw up a triangle on Levi. And it was almost close to being locked in. It was like a trap triangle, and Levi defended really well by stepping over and escaped. So it's very much a subjective thing. Who do you think had more effective jiu-jitsu technique? I don't hate the call, to be honest. Same with the Tackett Kade Ruotolo match. I could see those matches going either way. And I don't hate any of the decisions, but some people are very, very opinionated with it online, and maybe I need to watch the match again. But pretty amazing from Kade Ruotolo to win the $1 million. And also, if you haven't seen it, you should check out Ty Ruotolo versus Jason Nolf. That was a sick match. Loved that match. Clash of styles, two very wrestling heavy guys. The Ruotolo brothers, they don't really play guard ever. They're more, they're almost like catch wrestlers, like they like playing on top. And they always wrestle really, really hard, aggressive fighting, and then catching submissions out of nowhere. Also, if you saw Matthias Diniz versus Kade Ruotolo, you would see people criticize Kade for really hard collar ties, which were legit like punches, But the truth is in a fight like that, you have to assert your dominance. And when the stakes are $1 million, like, it really does pay to have your opponent believe that they are not the dominant athlete in the fight. And you could see Matthias Diniz start the fight off with a hard collar tie and a foot sweep. And Kade was basically just like, no, like, I'm not going to accept this. And he just kicked him and started clubbing him in the head. And right away it set the tone. And then what proceeded after was Kade absolutely dismantling Matthias Diniz, taking him down and making him look like a white belt and just submitting him brutally. So that was very, very impressive to see. We're talking about like an ADCC champion here, and Kade Ruotolo is just going in there and doing that to him. Wow. Amazing. And then the last thing I want to mention was I just wanted to mention like the legends that were in ADCC that actually went incredibly far this year. And, you could argue, well, would these guys even be in the ADCC if it wasn't for CJI? Like, CJI happening did leave large gaps in the roster of ADCC to allow, some guys that maybe wouldn't be invited to ADCC. It allowed them to move in and take a spot they might not normally have. And a lot of these guys were like some legends in the sport. Three come to mind in particular: Cyborg, Lovato, and Wagner. Now, I don't know if those guys would have gotten invited anyways. They absolutely deserve it for what they've accomplished in the sport and what they've done for the sport. But Cyborg gets a bronze in the under 99 kilogram division and a silver in the absolute division. Lovato gets a silver in the under 99 kilogram division, losing to Kaynan. And then Wagner gets silver in the 77 kilogram division, losing to Mica. So these guys are losing to, like, you know, the absolute best guys, but yet they're still having incredible performances. And these guys are all over 40. Some of them are, I don't know how old they are, but I think some of them are like mid 40s, you know, but still competing with the best guys. And that was super cool to see. I saw Lovato in there and I was just like, how many times has this guy retired from competition? You know what I mean? He's retired so many times. I think this is probably the last time though. But it might be one of those things where 2 years goes by and he's training and he's like, man, I actually feel good. All right, I get invited. I'll just go back and do it again. So you never know. You never know who's going to show up at ADCC. But all three of those guys had like really incredible tournaments. They beat some tough guys to get to where they were. And that was very, very impressive on the side of those legends. Cool to see these old guys go in there and fight with the younger guys and still show their skill. They're able to do it even their older age. All right, guys, those are the biggest takeaways that I got from the weekend. If there's anything that I missed, definitely leave comments in the bottom and start a conversation. It'd be great to hear from you guys. If you want to subscribe to the show, like the show, share it if it helps you. And if you want to support the show, there's links in the bottom. All of that is greatly appreciated. Love the support. And thank you very much for listening. Remember, the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Peace out.